Maybe I can use mine.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Stream and Hub Radio. I am Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. And today, my guest is a former Ford model who is now a member of industrial rock band Orgy. And I want to welcome to the show today, ILIA Yordanov. Hey, ILIA, what's up? How are you?
I'm doing great. Hit the ground running today. Thank you for having
That's
me, first and foremost. Happy,
oh no worries. Thanks for making the time to come on.
of course.
So you started, or I mean, I guess maybe not started, but you were a model, and then now you're a guitarist for a rock band. How did all that happen?
Well, I initially started in music. I grew up in the Seattle music scene and started playing professionally and I guess playing live shows when I was 15 years old. So yeah, about over 20 years, over 20 years now. So I started out doing that and had toured, my first tour was at 18 and I had played in various bands. I had my own band. We released records, played shows, toured. And then essentially I kind of went on break from that lifestyle when I had signed with Ford, and that was ultimately the catalyst that I needed to get me to move back here, because before moving to Seattle, I lived in San Diego, and it was only a matter of time for me to go back to Southern California, which is where I ultimately wanted to end up being again. So once when I signed with them, I had taken a little bit of a break from music, and that's when I also started acting and focusing more on my film stuff and all that. So yeah, that was about 2008, I guess, when I made that shift. So yeah.
Okay. So when you mentioned film, what exactly you were acting?
Yeah. So I had shot my first thing, which was, I guess to this day, probably still like one of the projects that I worked on that I was the most proud of. It was this Italian director I worked with, and it was this bizarre concept, but it was a short that I worked on in 2009, and shortly after that I got reps and just do the normal routine auditioning, getting rejected 99% of the time. When you do get something, praying that it potentially sees the light of day. And so still doing that. But that started around a year after I had moved down here. So yeah, probably like 2009 is when I started acting. Yeah.
I take it that you're not really a fan of the process of acting from what you said.
No, I mean, I don't really take it personally. And I just feel that it definitely gives you character. I think the more time you have in the oven, the better. Looking back on it now, I'm kind of glad that I never really broke in that department the way that I ferociously and vehemently wanted it at that age, because I just don't feel that I would have been ready. So I, since then, obviously a lot's changed in terms of how my perspective on things, but I do definitely have a more surrendered approach, and I do believe in divine timing and stars aligning. And so rather than putting pressure on the whole mechanical aspect of things, I really just kind of focus more on getting back to that childlike sense of the love of the process itself and remembering why you're doing it to begin with, and allowing that stuff to come to you more than you having to chase it. So
right. I have the same opinion. I have goals, of course, but like I try and put it out there, and obviously you do the work, but then a lot of times you just have to sit back and let the work speak for itself and have the opportunities come to you. Speaking of that, how did the opportunity with Orgy come about for you?
So I was at a friend's house who's a pretty well-known director, writer, and we were just there hanging out late one night. He had just wrapped a movie that had come out at that time, and we were just hanging back, relaxing, having a good time. And then I get a call from an old friend of mine saying that she just finished opening up for Orgy at the Whiskey. This was about 10 years ago, and was wondering if they could come meet up with us. And I was like, come on over. And that was the night that I had met Jay, their only remaining original member and my friend of 10 years now. So we started out as friends, and he really campaigned for, really championed me, a project that I was a part of at that time with another girl named Keely that I was working with. He really liked our project and brought us over to a studio in North Hollywood called NRG, and really wanted to kind of put his best foot forward in helping us and launching us. And as far as joining the band goes, about 5 years ago, I was asked by him if I was interested in touring, and I still was kind of trepidatious to go back into the music world at that degree. So I had declined.
Mm.
Um, but after giving it some more thought and a couple conversations with some close friends, I decided to go ahead and do it. And yeah, it's been great.
What was your main reasons for saying no at the time?
I'm just about as OCD as they come. I just, I mean, I have such a vigorous like supplement regimen, and not much.
You don't travel well. You just don't pack up and travel well.
I can travel pretty light if it's for a short period of time, but when you're on the road for a month and a half and you're sharing a space, a bus with multiple people, I can just sort of see the trajectory of a situation oftentimes. And I guess back then I was just so sequestered in my routine and my comfort zone. I was just a little reluctant to take that leap, but I'm glad that I did, because I definitely needed to get out of that.
Right.
But yeah, that was initially my reservation for it. It's not because I actually was a fan of the band when I was younger. There was that serendipity. I had told Jay when we first met, I thought they were way ahead of their time at the time, and it was actually one of my first favorite bands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there is that serendipity aspect there for sure.
With acting, did you study a lot, or did that just sort of happen for you as well?
It's the one, I always wanted to do it my whole life. I just love the medium of film, because I feel that if we're not going to have a fulfilling life experience, which most people won't have the life experience that I feel they initially crave in childhood or in innocence. Mm-hmm. So the next best thing to that is, I feel, going and watching a film and having the powerful medium that is a story or a narrative, because you can have this vicarious experience through other characters, and you go on this journey, and if it's done properly and if it is immersive, you could excavate life lessons from that. And I just feel like it's a very powerful medium, and that's why I was always so drawn to it. Having grown up in a tumultuous household, and oftentimes I'll hear this from other people too, like it's a form of escapism, and that was initially why I knew I wanted to be embedded in that 1000% in every which way I can, behind the camera, in front of the camera. But essentially, well, you were asking me what drew me to it, right? I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah.
I kind of went off on a tangent there, but no, that was essentially what started it for me, was that. And then, along the way, I just, I also had my mom was a great supporter of that. She wasn't really like the sort of sheltering, restrictive type parent that, you come across oftentimes. And then also along the way, there were some people in the industry that really went to bat for me and stuff like that I'm very grateful for.
When you say they went to bat for you, what, they helped you get roles, or they
tried. They tried. I had Bill Block, who's a producer, and a friend. He helped. He really he went out of his way to pitch me for a role, which I'm forever grateful for. It didn't end up working out, but I was very grateful for that. And then my best friend, Kristen Dalton, she's an actress. She's been my rock now for 11 years. She is really the closest friend that I have. And I met her through David Arquette, who was a friend of mine before that. And he's definitely been a super champion as far as me being a musician goes too. If I ever took breaks from it or anything like that, he would just be he couldn't have it. He always wanted me to be doing it, me and my brother.
He'd get on you and say, get back to it.
Yeah, totally. And I recently invited him to the last show we played, and kind of caught up a little bit. And because he lives else. He moved out of LA. He's still here half the time though. But
okay.
But he had said that it makes him really happy when he sees that I'm out and about and playing and doing all that. So it's like having he's like an older brother, So,
oh, that's sweet. Yeah, that's nice. He's pushing you along, making sure that you don't give up. That's very important. Is there anyone else that's been really important in getting you to where you are?
There's been so many. I've been blessed with knowing so many interesting people on my journey. Shane Black's a friend. I was at his house when I had met Jay that night from Orgy. So I'm just watching him work. I mean, the time that we've been friends, I've watched him do 2 or 3 movies, and just
Oh, wow. Yeah.
his whole process. I mean, he really is a savant and a genius. He'll deny it. He's very self-abasing and has this self-deprecation aspect to him, but he really is just, he loves it. I mean, I've never seen anyone own more books than that guy. I swear I've seen more books in his house than I have at libraries. Like, he loves pulp novels, and he's just still is like, you can tell that he really loves it. Like, he still approaches it like the same level of innocence
He
that
still has the curiosity and
one.
the passion for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, he's just watching him and being around him and just watching his whole process, being on set, being at his house, having the dissertations that we've like, long, existential conversations we've had way into like 4 in the morning. I'm just, grateful that I know so many incredible people. So yeah, I was always been like the elk where it's like I'd rather be surrounded by a ton of people that I feel small around, that I can learn from, that can elevate me, than play a big fish small pond sort of thing.
I understand. Are you getting into like more behind the scenes in filmmaking, or are you just writing? Or I know I read somewhere that you were writing some stuff.
I remember what you had asked me. You had asked
Yeah.
me where I studied. So I did study. It was in college originally in Seattle. I took it, and I was fortunate enough to have a teacher who was a working actor. And so I studied with him, and then I studied at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. And then as far as being behind the scenes, when I was doing my solo music, which I still do, I had produced and directed a music video of mine. It's called Fire in the Middle. And my solo project is just my name, ILIA. So that was my first time directing. And I knew I always wanted to do it, but I felt like if I wasn't going to, not that I believe that school is the only way, but I felt that if I have the luxury of having more time on set, I want to be on set a little bit more and be exposed to it a little bit more before I actually like take on that hat and that role.
As far as directing.
As far as directing goes, yeah, I'm not in a rush to do that. But, should it somehow
fall in your lap, you'll go with it, right?
I'll go for it. Yeah, no, I won't get cold feet or anything. I'll give it my best. So, yeah.
What advice would you give someone that was wanting to get into the music industry?
Oh man, that one is, yeah, I mean, it's like, I always say the same thing, and especially given how sort of homogenized and restrictive it's become now, it has. I feel like the indie world has more of an accessibility now, because there's various genres of metal now that I feel have an accessibility that it didn't have when I was growing up in the scene.
Expand on that. Tell me more. What do you mean exactly?
There's like these hardcore and metal bands that when I was growing up had like first of all, we didn't have like TikTok or Instagram, whatever. We had MySpace, and we had, I think we had like LiveJournal or whatever. We had limited social media platforms for the band. You had to tour voraciously. It's like, it wasn't really easy to get your name out there. But now I feel that even though the mainstream world seems to have become a lot more, not to offend, but homogenized and sterile, sort of subgenres and all the little independent, like I feel like now, because of platforms like TikTok and Instagram, like I feel that these new generations have more the ears for it. They don't reject it as much. And there's just bands that play in a certain genre that I can't believe are getting nominated for Grammys. Like, I would never think that when I was a kid, I mean, you're not going to see them like perform on the actual show or be broadcast, but they're still getting nominations or Grammys or whatever. So I just feel that now we're just given a lot more reign in terms of what we can do independently. And then in that position, you find the suits are coming to you and you're able to negotiate your own terms and deals, hopefully. So so having given that sort of whole long rambling prologue, I would say that the advice that I would always give is just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If people don't like it, or if it's not trending, the worst thing that can happen is you created something that you love. And I just feel that staying in that energy will attract more. Maybe it not be on the timeline that you want, but ultimately it will. And it will get recognized at some point, because it's better than failing twice at doing something that you don't like, and then you find that it doesn't meet the results that you expected. And then it's like, just, you fail on both accounts and it just feels fucking shitty. I'm sorry. I guess I was, didn't really find another form of catharsis I could have, or words I could have used to give me that catharsis. But yeah, ultimately,
Duck and shitty. Yeah, I got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Apologize for that. Ultimately,
okay.
yeah, I just feel that it's a slippery slope deviating from what's true to you. And I feel that you maintain an iron fist, and it's really important that you keep doing it for the right reasons. I don't feel that there's any failure in that. It might not be how you see it, how you expect it on the timeline that you want, but if you do things for the right reasons, you stay true to who you are, ultimately it gets you exactly where you need to be. And that's my so
you're saying staying authentic to like your voice and your creative, whatever that creativity that you have is really important. Have you ever struggled with that?
1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah. And I feel that had I not, I wouldn't be so adamant about it. I just felt like I definitely deviated at one point. I felt that, and it took me a long time to really come back to, I felt the most true that I really was to who I was before I sort of had this arc and where I am now was when I was a kid. And then I found myself, as I was becoming more honest with myself, I found myself going full circle back to those fundamental roots about things that I originally loved and liked. So yeah, you sometimes you got to lose yourself to find yourself. You have to deviate to realize that that's not the path you want to go. It's just part of the journey. No one else can tell you that or anything. I mean, advice helps, can help in retrospect for validation, or maybe help you dodge some curveballs along the way. But yeah, I 100% felt like I had betrayed myself and my authenticity many times.
Okay.
1,000%.
You're originally from Bulgaria, correct? How was coming to the US, and what obstacles did you have when you first came?
Well, I was 2, so not really many that were palpable in any way, other than just, like I said, a very volatile upbringing, because my parents were very young when we came, and it was sort of, the story is wild. We had an exit visa to another communist country that we were supposed to go to, but we never got off at that destination, because once we got to one of our layovers, which was Puerto Rico, which is American territory.
Yes, I lived there actually, yeah, for a little bit. Yes.
Oh, so then, yeah. So my dad had a plan all along, and he's like, "We're not getting back on that plane." Airline tried to charade as air marshals and get us to get back on. My dad noticed that they didn't holster us, so he was like, "Not happening." He got asylum for 2 weeks in Puerto Rico. Eventually, he went with San Diego, and then we just started out with $50. Both my parents were 23. I was a month away from 3. My brother was 6 months old. So, when kids are raising kids in a high stress environment like that, it's like, it was wild. But, I tip my hat to my parents, and it's like, they've really been, I know people say this all the time, but, I am around incredible people, and I've seen people do amazing things, but no one's really ever going to top the reverence in which I hold my parents and what they were able to do. Because I can't imagine myself doing that now, let alone, at their age.
Well, that definitely takes a set of, some guts, definitely some guts to get off a plane and not get back on, and then have air marshals come to
charading.
Yeah, charading. Yeah, but to be astute enough to discern that they're charading, and then even whenever you're in those tense situations, because I've traveled a lot, I've had my own misadventures, and yeah, like sometimes you're questioning, like, am I right? Am I wrong? Like, because if I'm wrong, this is like a really bad wrong.
Yeah. Thankfully, I think those were more lenient days. But my dad had done a lot of research and had realized that airlines back then were fined tremendously if they weren't getting the passengers on the manifest at their final destination, or stuff went on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that you started off with some good adventures, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
What have you learned from being in LA?
How important values and principles are, and your loyalty to your authenticity and yourself, because you can lose yourself very easily. I mean, when you're constantly and there's the juxtaposition of what is possible and where you're at when you're struggling and along the way, because I've been there. I've lived out of my car. I've had great people in my life. I didn't have to. but my pride would not allow me to really go there. But having struggled.
Sorry, what do you mean you've had great people, but you didn't?
Well, I had people that easily could have helped me. You know?
Oh, okay.
But I just couldn't bring myself to do that at the time. And so, like, I had many nights where I was in my car. If I wasn't in my car, I was couch surfing or, doing whatever. I noticed it's getting really dark on my end here, light wise. But yeah, so, having gone through that struggle, again, it's something, being through that experience, again, just even further validates and sort of gives buoyancy to the point that I'm trying to make, that, sometimes you really don't understand the value of your authentic self and your true being until you come close to losing it. And so, and in those darker hours when you're desperate and when you're broke, like they say, life's three best teachers are empty pockets, failure, and broken heart. I had all three of those at the same time.
Oh.
So
actually, I've never heard that. I'm gonna remember that. I have to remember that.
Yeah. So, but I'm very grateful for all that, because again, all that kind of stuff is, I'm not a big fan of unconsciously seeking out or consciously volatility to get for artistic fuel. But the fact that I had gone through it and had given me and allowed me to sort of dive within the register of the capacity to feel all of this range of emotions, and then in the future have to draw from in whatever creative venture I'm a part of, I'm just supremely grateful for. And then also, I just feel that if you're given that, a blessing out of season is no blessing at all, I believe is the quote. And I just feel that,
okay,
you got to have a certain degree of discipline with your ego. And I feel that if I would have had that too soon, if I wasn't achieved the humility that I had having struggled, I felt like it could be something that you could teeter on almost destroying too. So,
okay.
So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Sort of with that, how do you decide, when someone comes up to you, because, we all have different opportunities come to us. How do you decide what to say yes to?
It's funny. I always go back to the intangibles, like my gut. I just go with what feels right. I mean, I'll obviously let things matriculate. I'll think and I'll do all that. But I'm not an impulsive person. But ultimately, I just go with what feels right. And if I find that I'm disrespecting myself in any way, or it doesn't feel true to me, then I won't do it. Yeah.
Are there any opportunities that you said no to that you now, in hindsight, wish you had said yes to?
It's a good question. Fortunately, there have been roles that I've turned down that were within a certain sort of typecast that I'm okay doing and I have done, but I didn't want to continue doing it before I really cemented myself as an actor. I didn't want to, just be seen as that and then kind of snowball myself into just only getting those.
Yeah, be typecast. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be one. And then, which is just more of like an amalgam really. And then there was one Orgy tour I actually did turn down.
Well, yeah, you were saying that you originally said no, but then you.
Well, I said no to that, but I did it. But then they did another one shortly after that, and I had not gone on that one. So,
okay.
Yeah, I would say about that. But normally, for the most part, I haven't been too. I don't think I've ever really been offered something where it's like, here's this much money, but it's going to cost you everything.
Your soul. Yeah.
It's I've been in some weird situations, but ultimately, yeah, no regrets. I would say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to hear. What do you believe are the necessary steps to success?
I think work ethic is paramount. I think discipline is paramount, and I think self-awareness is paramount. Yeah, I would say those three just come instantaneously.
Right.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say one of my favorite quotes. I think I might have heard it from my brother first, and it was, "How you do anything is how you do everything." So,
right.
Some of the most incredible people I've known, it doesn't matter whether they're making tea or their bed or shooting a movie. They approach all of it with the same grace and discipline, and
yeah,
that's what I.
Yeah, full tilt. Mm-hmm. Got you. Yeah, 100% effort.
Yeah.
How important is networking to your success or in general?
I feel that if you're exclusively focused on that, you're going to be spinning your wheels with no result. I mean, if the opportunity comes about and you're invited out, and if things are organic, like I see it as a dance, like know when to take a step forward, but also know when to take a step back. And I feel that, when it's networking, like consciously you set out to network, I don't know if I've ever seen that really do much. But if opportunities, circumstances, and all these sort of organic if present themselves, sure, capitalize on it, go, and and then whatever happens organically, great. I don't believe in like rebelling against that or something like that, but I also don't believe in focusing all your energy in that. I just know that I have done this myself when I was younger. Like I feel like I would get so distracted in the networking aspect that I would lose focus on the actual work.
Right, right. I understand.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Interesting. There's so many. Let's see what one that comes to mind.
You can mention a couple if you need to.
Yeah. Oh man. Best piece of advice that I've ever been given.
That has helped you somewhat in your career or, personally.
I don't know if he'd want me to quote him saying this, but it's someone that I know that's been in the industry a long time and said, he said, because I used to be very open with people, and I guess the best advice, and this sort of kind of pertains to privacy and being careful with how much you expose.
Right.
But he had said to me, he's like, just because he saw that I was very open with people. I didn't really have any boundaries. And he was like,
you had no filter.
Yeah, he was just like, Ilya, just know that people are more dangerous. And not to be grim, like,
yeah, I understand.
Because people are more dangerous than you realize. So really, and I never forgot that. That one really stuck with me. And there's several like that have stuck with me, but that one in particular has.
No, I agree. I totally agree, because I feel sometimes it's better to be quiet, not to give people too much information. And again, not to be negative or all that, but especially here in LA, like not everyone wishes you well.
No. Yeah, that comes back to that other quote where it's like most people want to see you do well, or some people, or is it most people want to see you do well, but
not better than them.
No one wants to see you do better than that. Yeah. No, it was most people don't want to see you do well. Some people want to see you do good, but nobody wants to see you do better than them or something.
Right. Like exactly. Exactly. I tend to agree.
Never underestimate the power of human envy. Yeah.
Yes. But I also like to keep, I don't know, like you do need to talk about what you want to do sometimes, but I also like to wait till it's actually done. Like I know 100% that it's going to happen, because I think sometimes if you talk about it too soon, that can sort of, jinx you a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
I operate the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, my agents used to ask me and my managers if I even wanted to do what I'm doing, because when I get calls that I had callbacks or something like that, they'd be like, they just see that I would be very stoic, and they'd be like, are you not excited? Do you not want to do this? And I was like, no, it's not that. It's just, there are so many things that can go wrong
Yes.
I had a friend that literally showed up to a movie, invited her whole family, and only to find out there at the premiere and she was a veteran actress. She's been in a lot. But this project specifically, she ended up on the cutting room floor with the exception of 10 seconds. And she'd invited, she wasn't given the heads up. So, it's such a long, arduous process. And honestly, for superstitious reasons, just for the sake of, which you said, jinxing, and just for maintaining focus, I don't ever get too excited really about anything. And I don't like to, I had a friend also tell me once that if you talk about something before you actually do it, there, I guess, chemistry wise, or like your brain, it releases chemicals in your brain to where you get the elation or catharsis as if you've done it.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's why I don't like, because I really don't like talking about it. Like it's, until I really know. It's sort of like your actress friend I remember my first acting role. I was all excited, and then yeah, like it never happened or whatever. And I told people, and like, yeah.
Yeah. There's that, and I guess the other reason to sort of seal that whole thing up would be just the rebellion against the fact that everyone else is doing that all the,
Right.
especially here at
Exactly.
7. So I'd rather talk about something else and let the work speak for itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we find you on social media?
My personal one is just ILIA Yordanov. It's my first and last name, and the Orgies is just Orgy Official on Instagram. So that's pretty much it. I just recently started an account for a book that I self-published called Dirty Mirror Talk. I published it for free back in like 2016 on a
I
site.
was I was gonna ask you what else you were working on, so let's go.
Yeah, it's I published it a long time ago. I went through several revisions. I stopped after a while. I was like, whatever, it's free. If there's typos, who cares? And so I put it up there. Yeah, and then I started a social media account for recently, and that one's just the title of the book, which is Dirty Mirror Talk. So yeah, and then as far as what's coming up, Orgy fans have wanted this a long time, so I guess this is the first time I'm sort of saying it publicly, other than like a recent interview I think we did that was a Reddit interview. But we are releasing the first 2 records on vinyl. Candy Ass and Vapor Transmission are going to be released on vinyl this spring, and then we're hitting the road for 2 months and playing a festival in Florida called Welcome to Rockville, which is a Danny Wimmer event. And yeah, it should be fun. So that's on the itinerary for spring.
Okay. So back to writing for a minute. What made you want to write?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, I never really planned on it. I just, what had happened was, and it always kind of would come incrementally in spurts when I was younger. But then predominantly when I was going through that whole metamorphosis and that awakening from 24 to 28, I would just find myself getting up in the middle of the night, and stream of consciousness would just, for hours, would just keep writing. Could never really tell if I was doing it for someone else or myself or both, but it just was coming through. And then over the years, I realized once I started sort of spinning the same thesis over and over again with different metaphors or references or whatever, that's when I kind of knew it was done, and I was ready to put it up, because I felt that if it can find its way to people that it might help lift up, or console in any way, I would feel rewarded in that regard. So yeah, it just really came about organically. I mean, when I'd be in my car, if I wasn't reading,
I write. Sorry, I write a lot in my car.
Yeah,
there's something about that. I don't know what it is.
Well, for me, it was the only option at the time because I was living out of my car, so I would be. I'd have my BlackBerry, and I would put it in like a memo, like a notebook,
right.
And I would just I think they were called like memos or whatever it was. I was just writing them down there, and then later I had typed it up or transferred it.
Right.
But yeah, it was just, I couldn't not write it because there were so many just moments of awakening that I had going through those periods of time that I felt like it needed to come out, and I needed to materialize it and write it down, and share it. So
what are the books about? Like, sorry, could you give each title again and then just give a little synopsis?
It's just one. It's
sorry.
It's Dirty Mirror Talk, and it's just dated entries from 2012, but they're not like diary entries. They're just me going on and on and on about certain themes, topics, existential topics, or the relationship between the ego and the spirit, the mind and the heart, and find, how one can strive to find harmony for both through personal accountability. Which is, I feel like, the master class of being a human being, because we have a proclivity to loving to take credit for our triumphs and accolades and all that, but seldom do we ever allow ourselves to really, take responsibility for the pain, strife, and struggle that we have in our life. We have such a organic propensity to victimhood, and it can be very the disservice in the long run. So realizing what ways you can transcend that and circumvent that, I feel, are just invaluable. So for me, when I was having that sort of realization and all that, I just felt like I needed to write it down and share it. But yeah, it's just one book, and ultimately that's the
Okay.
fundamental theme of it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
When's the next time you perform for
Jan-
Orgy?
January 13th, we're playing it's actually a couple of our friends' joint birthday show that we're doing at Bar Sinister in Hollywood. So
Okay,
yeah, so we're going to be doing that January 13th. It's the next show.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story and giving us your thoughts on things. And well, we're getting into Christmas mode or Hanukkah mode, so I wish you a happy holiday. And I want to thank everyone for watching us today and see you next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sage. Take care. Happy
Thanks.
holidays, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.